Hello, everyone. My name is Sheila Ragland, and I'm going to be hosting today's session for the Learning Planet Festival 2026 as part of the UN International Day of Education Conference. This session is hosted by Bluture, and I'm so excited today as we will be launching our River to Oceans platform. So let's begin. So here is our table of contents. This is everything we will cover today. We'll begin by learning a little about the Learning Planet Festival, then a little bit about me. Then we will dive into the problem and the urgency of this problem. But we're not going to linger on that. Then we get to move on to the solution. And so, as part of the solution, we have our framework, and I have a case study that we will explore. And then finally, we will explore the roadmap and impact we plan to have, and then the ask. Okay, about the Learning Planet Festival. The Learning Planet Festival is hosted yearly to celebrate the annual UN International Day of Education. It is co-hosted by UNESCO and the Learning Planet Institute. And this year, the festival returns for its seventh edition, bringing together hundreds of thousands of participants from 193 countries, all with the mission to advance a shared learning agenda that equips youth and communities to shape a better future. Okay, a little bit about me. My name is Julian Ragland. Like I said, I am a high school junior in St. Louis, Missouri, in the US. I'm the founder of Bluture, which is a youth led platform pushing for more accessibility to ocean conservation engagement. I was a youth delegate for the 2024 World Oceans Day, 2025 UN High Level Political Forum, and 2025 UNGA Youth Delegate. I was also an in-person participant at last year's Learning Planet Festival and International Day of Education. And this past year, I was a youth speaker at the Learning Planet Institute UNGA side event. In the future, I aspire to pursue a career that combines ocean conservation with the private sector with sustainable entrepreneurship. And then some more fun facts. I am a national qualified synchronized skater and a professional violinist. And I have a pet cat named Meow Meow. Okay, so what's the problem? There are currently 27 landlocked US states that do not directly border an ocean or a major sea. Yet, almost every state contains rivers that feed major continental drainage systems, such as the Mississippi Atchafalaya River Basin. This basin alone drains parts or all of 32 states, which is approximately 41% of the contiguous United States. And this transport nutrients and pollutions hundreds of thousands of miles downstream into the Gulf of Mexico. This basin alone delivers about 90% of the freshwater and nutrient loads into the Gulf. And so I live in Missouri. I'm right in the center of this Gulf. And so this is a crucial part of my life. More than 70% of the nitrogen entering the Gulf originates upstream of the lower Mississippi, meaning that the coastal states alone, despite all the direct hands-on work they are doing with conservation and cleanups, they alone cannot solve hypoxia without inland action. In addition to nutrients, rivers are now recognized as the primary pathway by which plastics enter the ocean, with inland urban watersheds contributing about 80% of plastic in the ocean. However, despite this profound connectivity, communities living far from the coast often feel geographically and emotionally disconnected from the ocean. Ocean conservation campaigns are overwhelmingly coastal in imagery and focus, leaving inland populations without a clear sense of agency or responsibility within these protection efforts. Therefore, it is crucial that we must engage inland populations because upstream actions directly affect downstream environments. So, what's the urgency of this situation? This problem not only affects the ocean directly, but also is affecting our health as a human race. In the ocean has been acidifying faster in recent years than it has in 300 million years. Since the beginning of the industrial era, this acidity has risen by 30%, and this is projected to reach about 170% by the end of the century if trends continue. On the nutrient aspects, nutrient loading to the Mississippi River Basin has not declined at the scale required to prevent Gulf hypoxia. the Gulf of Mexico dead zone continues to form every summer, disrupting fisheries, food webs, and coastal communities. And then plastic pollution is also at an all-time high, with roughly 8 to 11 million tons of plastic entering the oceans each year. And just to put this into some context, this is equivalent to a whole entire garbage truck full every single minute. At this rate, it is projected by 2050 there could be more plastic in the sea than fish. However, this is not only a threat to ocean ecosystems alone, but is a direct threat to our health. Microplastics have been detected in surface water and even treated drinking water. Plastics in the water travel up the food chain through the seafood we eat also, and because of this, it is estimated that humans ingest a credit card's worth of microplastics every week. Studies suggest that microplastic exposure could be linked to cancer, heart attacks, and even reproductive problems. So the solution, our solution that Bluture is proposing is our River to Ocean Futures program. So we have developed this framework to address this problem in SDG 14, and it has 8 steps. It is called the Mitigate framework. Number 1 is measure. First, we must conduct scientific assessments, track ocean health, and just gather data on what the current situation is, and just measure around, understand the situation. Number 2, investigate. Using this data that we have measured, we will analyze it to identify primary drivers of ocean degradation, such as climate change, industrial waste, habitat destruction, and really find out what the root causes are that's affecting what we're focusing on. Number 3, T, is target. Then with this, we're going to identify and prioritize the most pressing threats based on the previous investigation we just completed. Number 4, I, mitigate. Then with this, we will develop and implement new technologies or spread exposure to them, such as biodegradable alternatives, carbon capture technologies, or eco-friendly fishing gear. G is generate. Then after this, we must generate the resources, attraction, and partnerships necessary to effectively implement these solutions. A is activate. So we obviously cannot do this alone. We need to mobilize our governments, businesses, and communities to form long-term ocean conservation efforts. T, transition. Then we hope to shift industries toward regenerative approaches like sustainable aquaculture, renewable ocean energy, and circular economies. This just creates a long-term lasting system that supports the ocean. Finally, E, empower. We want to educate youth, train leaders, and create awareness programs that ensure long-term ocean stewardship. A case study. So the site that we have selected to focus on is the Missouri-Mississippi confluence site. Now, for me, this is about 40 minutes from my hometown of St. Louis, which is a major urban city. It's in West Alton, Missouri. So it's a little bit north of St. Louis. And this lies at the confluence of the 2 longest rivers in the US at 2,341 and 2,340 miles long. You can see in this image that the Missouri River spans all the way across from or near Idaho all the way down to the Gulf as it merges with the Mississippi River. And the site where they connect is in the red square, and this is the site we're focusing on. After they merge, they flow south together into the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean. And then why this is really important to focus on is scientific watershed sampling shows that there's much higher plastic concentrations immediately at or immediately below major river confluences. And this is the largest river confluence in the US. And like we said earlier, the Mississippi River Basin drains over 40% of the US, covering 32 states, and it provides drinking water to 20 million people and over $400 billion in revenue. Here's some more images of the site. This is the Mississippi River and this is the Missouri River. And you can see them merge. And then here is the map of St. Louis and its proximity. Okay, so there's a few major problems with this site at the moment. Number one, for plastic. As of 2021, the UN Environmental Program Mississippi River Initiative was launched, and this is where we are getting our data from. This in St. Louis, the overall plastic density was 0.69 items per square meters. There were 3 pilot cities in this study, and St. Louis had the highest one. The top categories of debris were plastic at 74%, metal at 8%, and paper at 7%. The top item collected, surprisingly, was cigarette butts. There was over 3,500 cigarette butts in over 40,000 square meters that was in the transect. The second most common item were bottles. Then with plastic sampling on a different study, researchers found a plastic or plastic-linked materials in 100% of the water samples taken. 96% of these microplastics in the Mississippi River were identified as polyester fibers. And in a other 2022 study, 13% of drinking water samples across St. Louis contained above the normal threshold for microplastic concentrations. And this is not just water in general, this is our drinking water that is affecting our health. Now, there's also chemical problems with the Missouri River. 11.6 million metric tons of nitrogen is added annually to the Mississippi River Basin, with an average of 1.5 million metric tons of this reaching the Gulf of Mexico. Just above the Missouri confluence, the Mississippi's nitrate plus nitrite level is the highest along the river at 2.6 milligrams per liter. Nutrient outflow from the Mississippi Basin is the primary driver of the Gulf of Mexico's hypoxic zone. In recent decades, this has averaged about 15,000 square kilometers and can reach about 22,000 square kilometers in summer. And for context, this is about the size of the state of New Jersey. This is a huge problem because these nutrients cause algae to form uncontrollable blooms that consume all the oxygen in the water, and this creates hypoxia. Hypoxia is when when oxygen in the water is so low that it can no longer sustain marine life, so essentially forming what they call a dead zone. And finally, there is major legislature problems with Missouri and our water quality. In 2018, St. Louis mayor and other Mississippi River state legislators joined this pledge to reduce plastic waste throughout the river valley. However, enacting local laws to curb single-use plastics has been extremely difficult due to a 2015 Missouri state preemption statute. This basically just forbids cities from banning or taxing plastic bags. Missouri is also a home rule state, meaning issues pertaining to natural resource use, including water, must be handled at the municipal level. St. Louis County is made up of 88 municipalities, so this makes major policies extremely hard to coordinate. So we won't just stop there. We have solutions to recommend to tackle all these issues. So our first way we're going to go about this is through education. So the first part of education is youth watershed literacy curriculum. So we will create river basin mapping, which shows local runoffs or watershed basins and tracing these feedback loops. And so local youth can feel a connection and know that we're not just completely disconnected, because if we have real data, then we'll be able to know the connection that we have. And then we're bringing inland to ocean connections through a very simplified and engaging children's book that I will be publishing soon. Then we will have consumer pollution literacy. So we will publish resources on everyday product breakdowns, for example, microplastic in cigarette filters, which is not something that you would consider a cause of plastic pollution. Will conduct audits throughout St. Louis of household, school, and business waste use just to spread awareness and like open up like people's minds to what's like the real situation in their communities. And then through citizen science participation. So this could include water sampling, water quality testing, or like marine debris tracking. Finally, I plan to soon publish a resource guide, which is our open access guide of actions starting like resources, materials you can access that anyone, regardless of their location or background or age, can take to address ocean health. Second solution type is through technology. So we are going to use LiDAR mapping and runoff modeling to map out like the area of this site. We will use the elevation data to visualize land slopes and drainage pathways of the Mississippi Basin throughout the whole St. Louis County. And then using this data, we will create simplified runoff maps detailing the stormwater's route to rivers. Then we will combine the LiDAR data we will use GIS mapping to combine this data with watershed data, waste audit records, water sampling, land use, and a lot of the citizen science resources we will have. And then using the LiDAR mapping and GIS maps together, we will predict the plastic accumulation zones, nutrient runoff hotspots, and flood prone points. And we will use this to really like hone down on what we need to tackle and create very detailed solutions. And finally, through policy. So, advocacy campaigns and petitions are really important because they bring in like everyday common people to these major issues. So we'll use petition platforms with the focus goal that we will take out of our maps that we have created, and then share these petition results with city and state representatives, communicate with the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, and share our LiDAR results and our solutions that we base off of those results. For example, something that a lot of states have enacted is a straws on request policy. This is a really important or really simple to really easy to implement, but very high impact way to bring ocean conservation and plastic literacy into everyday lives that does not require one to be directly connected to the ocean. Then it's important that we continue to advocate to repeal or amend the Missouri preemption statute. So this would allow St. Louis to at least put some effort into banning plastic bags, or at least reducing the plastic bags that we use. Then proposing policies, we will draft a policy proposal for local factors that we take again out of our mapping. Some examples might include stormwater trash control requirements, bottle bills. This is something, there's a few states like Michigan who have made these bills. This is essentially like a deposit return system, and it will reduce roadside waste and make it more easy for people to engage. And then attending lobby days and hearings just to get a sense of what the current state or what the state is currently doing and working on in regards to policy and ocean conservation. So the roadmap. So this all began in 2024, where I really explored my interest and I really dived into my passion of ocean sustainability and conservation. Back in 2024, we created the Mitigate framework, and I published a research paper on fisheries and aquaculture in Cambodia and its river and its connection to their ocean aquatic ecosystems. And I was all in 2024, I was also a youth delegate at the UN World Oceans Day, where I was able to share these findings and our goals. In 2025, we began to build the foundations of Bluture. We hosted a side event through Bluture about ocean sustainability through youth and what youth are doing for in this cause. We officially launched Bluture at the UNESCO Day of Learning 2025. I was a youth delegate at the high level political forum. We shared Bluture's mission, talked to a lot of legislators, like just learn more about the current situation. And we created the basis for this River to Oceans program. Now in 2026, we are officially launching our River to Oceans campaign. We plan to recruit new team members and advisors. We plan to build and publish our online resource base, and then further introduce our project in global conferences and events. And most importantly, we are going to begin our LiDAR and GIS mapping and conduct 3 case studies. By 2027, we want to be able to host our own online events where people can share their own findings that they have done in their communities, and then present our findings and suggestions to state legislators, get over work on the policy side, and then create country chapters with leadership teams. Now, the ask. For youth, we want just the most important thing that we can do is just to continue growing our interests and knowledge in sustainability. You can learn more about how water moves through your area if you're not sure what to do. You can explore your communities you can explore opportunities in your schools and communities that already exist. You can get involved with data collection in your area. This is so crucial because a lot of the information we know, like all this, the plastic information in St. Louis, comes from citizen science projects. You can design your own little projects and test small actions and the impact you'll have. And importantly, share your results and continue to spread the good word. Now, to schools, it would be very, very helpful if watershed and pollution literacy was more integrated into our existing curriculum. I feel like, especially coming from living in Missouri my whole life, it is not something that is talked about a lot. The awareness is very, very low. And there's a huge emotional disconnect between us and the ocean. Another big, big help is if schools would support student-led projects and serve as good mentors for students working in these fields. And then allow school grounds to serve as models for responsible practices through sustainable practices at lunch, sustainable cleaning programs, sustainability challenges. There's so much opportunity. And finally, to experts and organizations, be awesome to share knowledge and resources more openly so more people are able to learn and participate. Youth is there. We are often, it's hard often to get involved and to get into the right opportunities to spread the word and work. And so it would mean the world to support efforts of all youth through mentorship and encouragement and just help amplify our voices. It's nice to have spaces in big conversations or just opportunities for collaboration that we can spread our voice. And then finally, it would be great if you could spread any of our future findings or implement similar systems in your own community. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions or comments or would like to get more involved, be sure to visit our website, or you can email us at bluture.global@gmail.com or find us on social media at bluture.global. Thank you so much for joining and have a great rest of your day.